Sundays podcast, a Christian podcast that explores the gospel message and encourages holding God's word close to your heart between Sundays. It's Nathan again. I'm alone again because we're here with part 2 of the Unity study that we started almost a week ago. It's been just a little bit. We've had some weather come in, taken some time to reset. Now we're back ready to record. So we're going to start in part 2 of the Unity study. Remember, part 1 was unity in the church. Part 2 is going to be unity in the home. And to start, I want to start really just with the definition of unity that we gave in part 1 here. I've got a picture of it on my phone because I don't have my notes right in front of me. Part 1, unity in the church, we started by defining what unity was. And we said that it is believers bound together in Christ, working for Christ. Unity in the church, remember this is just for the church really, but we're going to talk about how it can be applied to every aspect of our life. But unity in the church is not uniformity or everyone sharing the same roles, opinions, or personalities. It's also not abandonment of your own core beliefs in order to believe somebody else's. All right, so today we're going to talk, like I said, we're going to talk about unity in the home. And I first want to just, kind of give you a picture here of how do you build a home, right? I've never built a home. I've never had a home built for me. I've never been too good at building with Legos. I've never been too good at building with Lincoln Logs or anything like that. But I know just a little bit because I've seen it done. I've seen people talk about it, how you build a house, right? And the very first thing that you start with is the foundation of the house, right? And so if you've got your Bible, I want you to turn over to Psalm 127. That's where we're going to first start talking about the foundation of your house. I'll give you just a second to get there before I start reading. Psalm 127 verse 1 says, "Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain." Okay? So this talks about, hey, your foundation of your house has to be the Lord. It has to be. If it's not the Lord, your house is going to fall apart. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to draw an absolute straight line. Okay? When I played baseball, when I was really, really, really little, right? I stopped playing when I was in the 6th grade, so it's been a long time since I played baseball, right? But we had this machine that we would use to put the chalk down for the baselines, okay? And if we didn't put a string at home plate, run it down to first base, a string down at home plate and run it down to third base, by the time we started at home plate and went to first base, our line would be way off, okay? And that same thing happens with the foundation of a house. If the foundation of the house isn't right and isn't sound, the rest of the house is going to be so messed up that it's not going to be able to be lived in. And think about it in our Christian life, right? If the foundation of your house is not set on the Lord, the house is going to be so screwed up, so messed up that nobody can stand to live in it, right? And the house is not going to be unified because nobody's going to be able to live in it because it's not based on the Lord. And you're like, well, Nathan, that's cool and all, but he's not really even talking about, the foundation of the house. Where can we go to find something talking about the foundation of the house? I'm glad you asked, okay? We're going to go over to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. As I'm reading this, you're probably going to be like, well, Nathan, I've heard this before, move on if you're not wanting to really hear this part. But hey, there's really, really good stuff in here. So Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 starts with, "Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." So I want you to just think about it for just a second. Which of these two houses stood whenever the test of life came? I'll give you a second to get your answer together. If you said it was the house that was built upon the rock, congratulations, you are correct. You win a prize. I don't know what your prize is, but you win something. Okay? Why do you think that happened? Why do you think that the house that was built upon the rock stayed steady? I don't know if anybody's ever been to the beach. It's been a long time since I went to the beach. Right? I went last summer for the first time in 18 years. I hadn't been in a long time. But the sand, it's still really hard to stand on it. Okay? You can't really run. This summer, I took it upon myself to run a whole lot. And so when we went to the beach, me and my family, I was like, well, I'm going to take my running shoes and I'm going to run on the beach. I found that it's incredibly hard to run on the beach. It moves around too much. You can't really get good footing. You can't really get good traction on it. Now, imagine trying to build a house on the sand. You're never going to get it right. It's always going to be moving. The water's going to come in and wash it out, right? But if you build that upon the rock, it's not going to touch it. That rock's going to be okay. That rock's going to hold steady. The same thing goes for our life. The same thing goes for our house, okay? If we build our house, our spiritual house, our physical house, the unity of our house, if we build it upon the Lord, then we're going to be okay. Everything's going to work out. Yes, I know the storms of life are going to come. Yes, I know all of these things are going to happen, and it's going to rock us, and it's going to shake the house. I think about the house that me and my wife live in. There's been some times where there's been some really, really big thunderstorms, and it's like shook the windows, okay? And we're like, dude, I wonder if that's going to, wonder if the window's going to break. But it never does. Now, I can only imagine if our house wasn't built correctly or up to code or whatever you want to call it, how bad those storms could really be for us. But because our house was built correctly, our house is fine. And the same thing goes for your spiritual life and your house in unity. If your unity of your house is built upon the Lord, then it's going to be okay. And I know I've said this, but really, I want you to think about it, and I want you to carry this with you. The whole purpose of this podcast is to give you things that you can carry through, right? The name of the podcast is Between Sundays. We want to give you things that you can carry from Sunday to Sunday, those days in between, filling in those gaps, so that way you'll be okay, right? So what I want you to take away from this is what you build on matters. If you want unity in your home, you have to start from the foundation. And if the foundation isn't right, nothing else will be. And that foundation starts with you, right? If you aren't in unity with the Lord, if you aren't at peace with the Lord, then you'll never have unity and you'll never have peace in your house, right? But another aspect of unity in the home has to be understanding and compassion. I'll say it again, understanding and compassion. Not every day is going to be full of sunshines and rainbows. I hate to break it to you, right? I'm sorry if you've lived your life for however long thinking that every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's not going to be. But also, not every moment is going to be the worst day ever, right? Not every day is going to be terrible. Not every day is going to be amazing. Some days you're going to have days that fall in the middle. But what do we do on those days? I'm really going to focus in on those days that we would consider bad days. What do we do on those bad days? Well, I'm going to take us over to 1 Peter chapter 3. I'll give you a second to get there. 1 Peter chapter 3 and then verse 8. This is Peter writing, obviously because the title of the book is 1 Peter. But it says, "Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous." 1 Peter 3:8 tells us to have compassion for one another. Sometimes all somebody needs to make their day better is for someone to be kind to them and show them just a little bit of love. I think about my wife, right? My wife, sometimes she has great days, sometimes she has absolutely terrible days. And I mean, it's normal human life, okay? But what my wife doesn't need in the moment when she's having a rough day is for me to come in, kick the door in, scream at her, throw things, all of these different things. All my wife needs in that moment is for me to give her a hug. That's it. That's all she needs. Now, how do I respond to that? How do I act with that? There are some times where I'm like, I'm having a rough day too, and it's really hard for me to give her what she needs. But I know that if I want my house to be okay, if I want there to be unity in my home, if I don't want to go 6-8 months without talking to each other, then I've got to act with a little bit of compassion and know that she's going to act with some compassion. If you keep looking in verse 8, though, you get to the first part of it, right? We want to jump down to where it says compassion, right? And love for each other. But if we look at the first part, it says, "Finally, be ye all of one mind." It's a whole lot easier for me and my wife to get things done when we agree on what we need to do, right? We talk about what we want to eat. It's a whole lot easier to figure out what we want to eat when we both agree on the same place, or if we both agree on the same meal, okay? But then if you look down at verse 9, I didn't even have a note for this one, but I was reading it as we were going along, and it stuck out to me. It says, "Not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing." So if your wife's having a bad day, or if my wife's having a bad day, I don't need to just, make her miserable because she's having a bad day. And the same goes for her. She doesn't need to just to beat on me, right? I might mess up. That doesn't mean she needs to mess up and do something to me to kind of counteract it or anything like that. No, it's we should be striving, right, to be in one mind, to be acting, right, as this unified body, That way we can bring honor and glory to the Lord. I'll get there in a little bit, but that's the whole purpose of a house, right? That's the whole purpose of a family. I'm not talking so much as like the physical house anymore, right? I'm talking as a family, right? I should have titled this episode Unity in the Family, but I didn't, right? I titled it Unity in the House because I knew if I said unity in the family, I wouldn't get a lot of people to listen. I want you to think about how I can get unity in my house, which is actually talking about your family, okay? It's all of you working together for the same goal. We talked about it in the last episode, right? I don't know if anybody's ever rowed a boat before, but it's a whole lot easier when everybody's rowing in the same direction. But you let one person start rowing in the opposite direction, your boat gets all screwed up. Your boat starts going in the wrong way. But if everybody's working for the same thing, then it's going to be all right, okay? Psalm 133:1. I'm going to give you a whole lot of scripture so that way, as you're carrying this through the week, you've got different places that you can go to where you can read and be like, all right, hey, Nathan talked about that. I'm going to go read it for myself. I'm going to figure out what it's saying to me, right? Psalm 133, verse number 1. Give me just a second to get there. Psalm 133, verse number 1. All right. It says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant is it for brethren to dwell together in unity." Boom. What have we been talking about this whole time? We've been talking about living together in unity. It outlines what living in unity is. It's good and pleasant. Living in unity, right? I'll read it again. It says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." I don't know if any of you are like me, right? We start using all these weird words that we don't really use in normal everyday language, so I kind of forget what's going on. But the word dwell just means to live. So it's good and it's pleasant for brethren or for people to live together in unity. If you want your life to be a little better, start in your home, right? You don't have to go out. I think about sometimes how we send out missionaries, right? And we want to send them everywhere in the world. We want to send them to the farthest corners of the world. And yes, those people need Jesus too. But what about the people that live across the street from us? Don't they need Jesus? So we've got to start in our home. I've often heard that the hardest mission field you'll ever have is your kitchen table. Okay? If you want your life to be a little bit better, start in your home. Start trying to get along with the people you live with. And don't just pick fights. Strive for unity. Don't just sit there and you know what makes people angry, right? I know what things that set my wife off. Okay? I know those things. When I lived at home, right, with my mom and dad and my brother, I knew the things that I could do to get under my brother's skin. I knew the things that I could do to make my mom and dad angry. Now, it would be a whole lot different. My life would have been a whole lot different if I spent every single waking moment saying, I'm going to do those things, rather than trying to bring a little unity, bring a little peace into the home, and do my part to do that, right? And at the end of the day, right, the only thing you can do is your part. You can't do anybody else's. But if you're doing your part and somebody else is doing their part, then it's going to be a whole lot easier to work towards that common goal of unity in the home. And again, that's what we're striving for. We're striving to get unity in the home, right? We've already mastered unity in the church. I'm like using big vision thinking here, right? We've already mastered unity in the church. Everybody in our church is working towards the same common goal. Everybody here is pulling their weight. Everybody's doing the same thing. Now let's move it to the home, okay? Let's start at home, all right? And I talked about that being this pyramid, right? How we could put unity at the church at the very top and we have to work our way up to it. You could also start with unity in the church being at the bottom. Let's start with this big group of people. Now let's move down to this smaller group of people, okay? So we know what to do. We know how to work, okay? It works both ways, but unity in the home is the next step, okay? You want something to get done in your church? Make sure you've got something going on at home. Make sure you've got unity at home before you start worrying about unity in your church. Make sure you've got unity in your church so that way when you go home, you can also get some unity there, right? It gives you some examples to follow. All right, let's look at one more place of Scripture, and I'm going to give you a little background story on this because for the longest time before I really got serious about reading the Bible and really just diving into what the Word said, I remember looking at this verse. It was on my grandma's wall. And I always thought it was actually talking about a house, right? And it's Joshua 24 verse 15, right? And I honestly thought the verse that it just said, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord, and that was all the verse said. But as I've done some reading, as I've taken this a little more serious, I found out that hey, it's not so much physically talking about a house, but more talking about the nation of Israel. So I'm going to read Joshua 24 verses 14 and 15, and then kind of bring out some points, and then I'm going to be done. I'm going to try to keep these kind of short, so you're not bombarded with a bunch of stuff, but I also want to get my point across. So Joshua 24 verse 14, says, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose ye this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." This is Joshua talking to the different tribes of Israel. He's saying, hey, you've tried all of these other different things, right? You've tried this God, and you've tried this God, and you've tried that one. I'm using little g's here to talk about these gods. You've tried all of these different things, and it's never worked. So when are you going to really try the Lord? When are you really going to get after what the Lord wants you to do? When are you really going to stop messing around with all these other little things over here? When are you going to stop avoiding going to church? When are you going to stop avoiding what the Lord's calling you to do? When are you going to stop sitting there and watching YouTube every morning rather than getting up and doing what the Lord's called you to do? When are you going to stop doing that? And when are you going to start serving the Lord? Because as for me and my house, this is Joshua. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Whether you do it or whether you don't do it, me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And the same goes for us, right? That same message comes to us. Yes, we don't have the gods of the Amorites anymore. We don't have, the gods that our fathers used to serve. You might think, but you do, right? Some people, all they want to do is they want to work 99 days a week. And I know you're like, Nathan, there's only 7. I know, right? But they want to work that much. They want to strive to just make whatever they can and work and work and work and work and work. And they never take time for the Lord or for their family. Joshua tells us here at the very end of this verse, it says, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Joshua was asking them to have this unified vision, right? He's asking the entire nation of Israel to have this unified vision that as for him and his house. So this is like, you could take this 2 ways here. Joshua's own personal house. As for him and his house, they're going to serve the Lord. But as for Joshua and the rest of the nation of Israel, they're also going to choose to serve the Lord. That's what Joshua's wanting them to choose. And that's the same thing that we have to choose for our house. As for me and my house, as for me and Courtney, my wife, we're going to choose to serve the Lord. I can't make that decision for your house because I don't live there. I'm not a resident of your house, but I can make that decision for my house. And you can make that decision for your house. As for you and your house, you need to serve the Lord. And serving the Lord will bring in some unity. It'll bring in that common goal, right? Again, it's a whole lot easier when everybody's got a common goal to work for, right? I think about when I played football in high school, okay? Really, my senior year was our best year. We went to the state championship. We played in the state championship. We did not win the state championship. We absolutely got blown out. That's a story for another time. But I want to talk about like this very specific moment in the middle of the season, okay? We had what we call our non-conference schedule. We played like some local teams from around here. Did okay in our non-conference schedule. We went and played this team that's called Randleman, or like from an hour from where I live. We played them well. They were a lot bigger than us, and we lost. Then we went and played another school from close by, and we lost bad. Okay. Well, then we had our bye week, and then we had another non-conference game. And we lost that last non-conference game. So our coach got us together after that very last non-conference game and said, guys, we've not won a game in a month. And if you look at it, right, we had 3 games, which we lost. And then we had our bye week, which is you don't play a game. And so we lost every game for that month. And he sat us down right there at the middle of the field, and he said, you got to have this one goal. What's your one goal? And everybody's goal in that circle of kids was to win the state championship, And so we worked every day with that same goal in mind of we're going to get to the state championship. We're going to win the state championship. We're going to get there, and we're going to win it. And we worked, and we worked, and we worked. And it wasn't easy. There were times where we wanted to just beat each other up. There were times where we wanted to quit. We had players that quit. They couldn't hang with the program. They couldn't stay with that one unified goal. But the more we worked together, the tighter we got, the more we started looking into that goal, the better it was. And we made it there. Right? So let's talk about our house. I told that story to really talk about our house. What is your goal for your house? What is your goal for your house? And I wrote up a goal that might be for your house. Our goal should be to bring glory to the Lord. Our goal should be to bring glory to the Lord. Our house's goal. Our house should be unified in our efforts to serve the Lord. So, it's a whole lot harder if one person, I keep going back to this, if one person rows in the opposite direction. It's a whole lot harder if one person rows in the opposite direction. And it's a whole lot harder to have unity in your house if one person's not willing to serve. Our efforts should be to serve the Lord. One person can't do all the serving. It takes everybody. There are roles that my wife does in the house that I'll never be able to take care of. There are roles in the house that I do that she will never be able to take care of. Again, it's like the church. We talked about it, right? There's preachers, there's teachers, there's singers, there's deacons, there's all these different things. And one person can't do it all. But if everybody works and pulls their weight and does their job, something amazing can happen. Look, I hope that you have got something from this episode. I hope I've given you something that you're able to take and carry through your week. I will hopefully get part 3 out to you kind of quick soon after this one, so you won't have to wait too awful long. Me and Ryland are trying to figure out a time that we can get back together to be together on an episode. We're working out all the details on that, so stay tuned for that. But just remember, guys, hell's hot and heaven's not. I love you guys. I'll talk to y'all next time.